Hello and welcome to NewsClick. Aijaz, it's good to have you back after some time.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be back.
We have been discussing earlier the Obama administration and when he came, what were the expectations and what we thought about it. So now it's almost 6 to 8 months that this administration has been running. What do you think about its foreign policy and its domestic policy?
Well, it's, from the beginning, different people had very different expectations. I never expected Obama to do something very different than had been done under the previous administration. And that was indicated by the fact that his administration is really, in terms of its top personnel, really an amalgam of the Clinton and the Bush administrations. It's really quite unprecedented in U.S. history that a Democratic president would retain as his defense secretary the person who had been the defense secretary under his Republican predecessor. And that was already indication enough that so far as the main thrust of U.S. foreign policy as it is expressed in its military policies would remain pretty much the same. Certainly in Iraq and Afghanistan and what now they arrogantly call AFPAC, but also positioning of U.S. Military posture in Central Asia and in Africa and so on. So that it was indicated very, very early that so far as the military posture of the United States on the global scale is concerned, it would remain pretty much the same.
Interestingly, you have talked about, of course, Asia, Middle East and so on. But interestingly enough, when you look at Latin America, the US policies seem to have again gone back to supporting coups, military regimes and so on. Maybe because they really see Hugo Chavez and the ALBA countries as a kind of threat.
Well, there are actually two different aspects to what you are saying, Praveen. One is that under Obama, the military commitment to Colombia, which is a very significant part of U.S. policy in Latin America, has been substantially expanded. They are building a whole new set of bases over there. And then this question of the coup
in Honduras.
I think it is an indication exactly of changed climate in the U.S. State Department vis-a-vis Latin America, that this kind of thing now would be accepted. This is the first time since Haiti that the United States has in fact allowed that and been actually a party to it. So yes, we can expect a much more aggressive policy. It is, I think, they're trying out there in Honduras, and they have by and large succeeded.
At the moment, yes.
And things actually are made much more dangerous for actually the smaller countries.
But interestingly enough, if you really look at it, that what you said, that this is something which is after Haiti, this is the first time that we are seeing this kind of a coup taking place. But if you really look at it, Organization of American States first time have really come out very strongly against a coup. And it has also, in some sense, solidified the support against such future regime changes perhaps in Latin America.
Well, yes and no, in the sense that when the Colombians intervene in a country beyond their borders, there was actually a threat from the major Latin American countries of direct military intervention if that something like that were to be repeated. That is to say, Chile, Argentina and Brazil, not to speak of course of Venezuela, threatened a direct military intervention if the sovereignty of another country was to be violated in that manner. Here, a coup has taken place to overthrow a legally constituted government. And in fact, the same countries have shied away from anything like that. So nothing terribly substantive has been done. Likewise, for example, now IMF is giving a very big loan to this coup government. And I do not see really a substantive protest against that, even by those governments. And I think that is partly their way of being cautious with what they see as a much more belligerent American stance.
Other part, of course, is Israel and the settlement policies. Gaza is continuing to be under siege, and the US administration has really kept completely quiet on that, something which is really inhuman on the way that the siege is being executed. And secondly, on the question of settlements, what they're really doing is virtually rap on the knuckles and allowing them to continue the most blatant settlement policy in Jerusalem. So I think the Middle East, if we take Palestine as a crucial element of that, then I think on Palestine what we are really seeing is virtually the continuation of the Bush policies.
Again, Praveen, I don't understand why anybody expected anything different. The day after Obama won the presidential nomination, he went to AIPAC and gave the most subservient speech that any US president has given in the last 20 years. Nobody has given that subservient speech. So I always expected him to do this. To expect that he would do something else. And this is bizarre. Then he thinks that he can go off to Cairo and say some pretty words about Islam, and somehow the people in the Middle East would begin to see the United States differently. Now he has taken a leaf out of the Indian establishment and is giving iftar parties. So, he thinks gestures of this kind would somehow assuage the Muslim sentiment. Whereas substantively that is going on. And let me say that not only that, there has been a bit of a rap on the knuckles. Only last week they have now, just about 3 days ago, the Israeli government has announced that they will allow the building of new houses in the settlements where Obama had sort of asked them not to do so. In all those respects, the dramatic change that has occurred in their policy towards Iran, Obama had come in as president saying, and then in the first few months he was saying, that that he was going to seriously negotiate in good faith with Iran, and now all of that is gone, and the serious media in Russia and the West is in fact talking about how forces are being positioned all over Central Asia for a possible intervention and possibly giving a cover to Israeli invasion of Iran, and they're now talking about a nuclear umbrella for Iran, for Israel. Nuclear umbrella for Israel against Iran.
Considering Israel has nuclear weapons.
Said to be about 200 nuclear warheads.
And Iran doesn't.
Some of the world's most sophisticated delivery systems.
So if you really look at the foreign policy scenario, one could argue that the Obama administration might have taken an initiative if the domestic policies were not sort of their preoccupation, or we could consider that really what you were saying, that this was never really on the cards.
Well, I would say, that has been my position from the beginning, since before he got elected. At that time, I had written an article in The Hindu saying that this is, people have false expectations. But more broadly and more structurally, I would argue that an incoming president of the United States today had a very clear-cut choice. The US hegemony is now so dramatically on the decline that you either have sane enough policies to pave the way for a soft landing and retreating from this kind of position that you have always wanted to achieve, and in the process of it you have made a large mess of it, or you carry on with the same belligerent policies. And he has continued with the same belligerent policies.
Thanks, Aijaz. We'll come back in the next segment with the discussion of the domestic policies.